This presentation is about Chrétien de Troyes' legendary poem, Le Chevalier des Charrettes, also known as The Knight of the Cart or just Lancelot. In this presentation, I will go over Chrétien de Troyes himself, his reason for writing the poem, the development of the poem, as well as its impact on French literature and French romance. In regards to the story itself, I will, as briefly as I can, summarize the story and then discuss its context in relation to other pieces of Arthurian legend. So without further ado, I will start by talking about Chrétien de Troyes, who was a very well-known French poet during his time, and the fact that he was even known as Chrétien de Troyes by the time he wrote The Knight of the Cart leads scholars to believe that he was not in Troyes, but perhaps somewhere else in France, maybe like Paris. Chrétien de Troyes was seemingly commissioned by Marie, the daughter of Eleanor of Aquitaine, after her marriage to Count Henry II of Champagne. This is explained explicitly by Chrétien in the opening lines of the poem as a sort of preface to the actual story that would soon follow. It is generally agreed upon by Arthurian scholars that Chrétien de Troyes developed his literary skills as a clerical worker. Although King Arthur was akin to a household name in England by the 1100s, around the time Chrétien de Troyes started his work on Lancelot, the development of this poem essentially begins the transition of Arthurian romance into France. Before then, Arthurian legends mostly stemmed from the tales of the Welsh, Britons, and Cornish people. It is for this reason that scholars believe that Chrétien and Marie of Champagne sourced the contents of their story from a culmination of works developed from these societies. This work would thereon be recognized as a landmark of French romance and influence works like it for centuries. It is a romantic poem written in the 12th century about Lancelot. The story is recognized as a medieval romance as it interlaces chivalry, purity, and courtly love with the larger literary movement recognized as Arthuriana, by including its fictional lands and characters. It's written in rhyming couplets and is composed in iambic tetrameter and consists of over 7,000 lines. While the story is definitely significant in its own right, it holds a special place within Arthuriana because it's the first major work that prominently details quests of Arthur's beloved knight, Lancelot. For organization's sake, I have broken down the summary into 3 distinct parts. The first being where Lancelot is simply the unknown knight of the cart, and then afterwards, when Lancelot is finally revealed to be the knight who is well known across the kingdom, and then finally, when Lancelot begins his arc of redemption in the eyes of Guinevere and the rest of the kingdom. Story begins plainly enough with the court of Camelot enjoying a dinner. They are interrupted, however, when a knight from Badumagu's realm challenges King Arthur to send his best knight to save captives of Camelot from their land, and also to defend the honor of Queen Guinevere. Arthur's steward, Kay, attempts to save the queen, but is unsuccessful and becomes imprisoned himself. When the Lord Gawain sets out on the same mission, he encounters an unknown knight who is hastily heading in the same direction as he is. The unknown knight perhaps is too hasty though, because he exhausts 2 horses to death, forcing him to travel in the most irreprehensible manner possible for a knight, which is to take on a ride with a merchant onto a cart. The unknown knight is then humiliated and shamed throughout the kingdom for this. But still, in spite of this, he sets out on the journey to save Queen Guinevere. The unknown knight is told of only 2 passages that allow entry to the land where Queen Guinevere is being kept. But he is also told that both of them promise certain death. The first entry is known as the Bridge of the Sword, and the other is known as the Sunken Bridge. In a great display of strength and valor, the unknown knight traverses the Bridge of the Sword unbelievably, which, interestingly enough, the Bridge of the Sword actually is a giant sword that must be walked upon on its blade. This badly injures the unknown knight, and this display of courage greatly impresses the King Badumagu, who, unknown to the knight, is watching him cross the Bridge of the Sword. Meligant, however, still wants to fight the unknown knight, but Badumagu insists that Meligant should not fight him. This marks the beginning of the rivalry between Meligant and the unknown knight, which would endure for the rest of the poem. It is at this point, after over 3,500 lines of poetry, the unknown knight is finally revealed to be Lancelot. Lancelot reunites with Guinevere, but she seems completely displeased with him, not even thanking him for his journey to come save her. This deeply hurts Lancelot, who, because of this, simply sets out on a new journey to help Gawain at the sunken bridge mentioned earlier. Lancelot and Guinevere, who while separated, falsely learn that the other has died, eventually lead them to a great reconciliation when they are able to see each other again. It's around this point in the poem where Lancelot engages Guinevere physically by creeping into her room one night and laying with her in bed. Meligant enslaves Lancelot in a great tower after this, but Lancelot will eventually be freed by Meligant's sister, who took pity on Lancelot and had resentment towards Meligant. Lancelot then returns to Camelot with Guinevere, and after a final battle between him and Meligant, slays Meligant and restores his honor. This is the end of the story of the Knight of the Cart, and at this point I believe it's important to note, while Chrétien de Troyes is attributed with writing this great poem, it is also known that he entrusted the final 1,000 lines to another poet named Godefroy. It is generally undecided exactly why this might have happened, although most scholars and historians think that it came down to either a lack of enthusiasm from Chrétien de Troyes to finish the poem, or him and Marie of Champagne just did not agree on the direction of the story. This story is relative to other objects of Arthuriana, namely Thomas Mallory's Les Morts d'Arthur, by adding more to the story of the romance between Guinevere and Lancelot. This is foreshadowed in Mallory's version of the story when Merlin actually tells Arthur that Guinevere should belong to Lancelot and not King Arthur himself. It's important to note that Lancelot in Thomas Mallory's story was most likely influenced by Chrétien de Troyes' Lancelot. Lancelot perhaps also inspired his appearance in T.H. White's Once and Future King, where he is recognized as the greatest knight that King Arthur had.